The Rebirth has begun. Rebirth is DC's new initiative to bring its characters and stories back to their roots, and to what made them enjoyable in the first place. While not exactly a reboot, since everything is still taking place in the New 52 universe, Rebirth will start DC stories back to issue number 1, and will tell brand new stories from their beloved characters. Since this issue here is about 80 pages long, which is much longer than your average issue, I won't be going through the entire story like I usually do. Instead, I'm going to be going through the main parts of each chapter, since it is split into 4 chapters, and then afterwards discussing my thoughts on the issue, as well as my general hopes and expectations for what's to come with the rest of Rebirth. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at DC Comics Rebirth number 1, and the beginning of change in the New 52 universe. The comic opens up with an unknown narrator talking about a watch he used to have. He says that when his watch broke, he lost time. He then goes on to say, everyone loses time. The narrator shows up inside the Batcave, where Batman is. He says maybe Bruce can help him. Back when he became God of Knowledge during the Darkseid War, he learned that there were 3 Jokers. Batman is trying to figure out what that means. Lightning strikes inside the Batcave, and the narrator arrives. He is then revealed to be Wally West, looking for help. Batman does not remember Wally, and Wally is quickly pulled back into the Speed Force. Using the little time he has left, Wally tells Bruce to remember the letter he got from his father, back when the New 52 first started. He is then pulled back into the Speed Force. Wally struggles to find someone who can help him. The comic then goes through Wally's origin and history, starting off with what seemed like a lucky accident that gave him his powers, all the way to Barry Allen's death and him taking up the role of the Flash. It then goes on to say how he fell in love, and how Barry managed to come back. Life was perfect. Wally explains how Barry created the Flashpoint event when he tried to go back to save his mother. He then reveals that when the world was being recreated after Flashpoint, that someone stole 10 years from them, and infected them all with some darkness. It wasn't Barry and Flashpoint that changed the universe, it was someone else. Someone else who's still out there. The first chapter ends with Wally determined to deliver a message before it's too late. The second chapter opens up at an elderly home. One of the men there is causing problems, so he is taken and locked in his room. Wally is then drawn to him. The man still has memories of before the Flashpoint, leading to everyone thinking that he is crazy. Wally doesn't have much time, so he quickly tells the man to find the Justice Society. He is then pulled back into the Speed Force, leaving the old man to be taken away. Over at a university, Ryan Cho is being yelled at since Ray Palmer has cancelled his class once again. Ryan runs off to find Professor Palmer, and he enters inside of his lab. He finds a message from Ray Palmer, providing him information on the problem he's in right now. He also tells him he discovered something he calls the Microverse. The message cuts off before he can finish what he is saying though, leaving Ryan to look at one of Ray Palmer's atom belts. Elsewhere, we see Ted Kord with Jaime Reyes. Kord is very interested in the scarab that Jaime has, and he wants to help Jaime learn how to use it. Well, Jaime wants nothing to do with it, and he wants Ted Kord to get it off of him. Jaime realizes that he is late for school, and he flies off. Dr. Fate then appears and tells Ted Kord that the Blue Beetle scarab is not actually science as he thought, but it is rather magic. The comic then proceeds to show several current and new heroes, and the second chapter ends with Pandora destroyed and disintegrated by an unknown being. The third chapter begins with Wally continuing to look for someone who will remember him. There are several heroes present at the site of the New 52 Superman's death. Oliver Queen and Dina Lance glance over at each other. Despite having not met the New 52, Wally says the two of them have a connection that they cannot explain. Something that makes them wonder what they've lost. Something that keeps them up at night. Clark and Lois are worried about their son watching the news of Superman's death. Clark wonders if Superman is really dead, since Doomsday killed him back in their world, yet he managed to come back alive. Perhaps here the events are repeating. As Clark is heading out, he is met by a mysterious visitor calling himself Mr. Oz. Mr. Oz gives him a warning before disappearing. Wally then watches as Aquaman and Mera go on a date together, and he starts to realize it wasn't just 10 years that was stolen from them. It was love. Aquaman proposes to Mera, and Wally manages to find Linda. She's trying to get in to see the scene of Superman's death, but they aren't letting anyone past. Wally is sure that if anyone will remember him, that it will be her, and that together they'll be able to warn everyone. Wally tries to tell her who he is, but she can't seem to remember him. This sends Wally back into the Speed Force, ending Chapter 3. Chapter 4 starts with Wally traveling around through the Speed Force, getting glimpses of other heroes in the New 52. He accepts that soon he will be one with the Force, and gone forever. He then looks into Central City and sees his cousin, the other Wally West, the New 52 Wally West. Turns out the two of them were both named after their great-grandfather, and are both connected through the Speed Force. Wally accepts if he isn't going to be around anymore, he trusts his cousin to take over as Kid Flash. Wally begins to feel the Speed Force consume him. Before he is one with the Force though, he sees Barry. Wally appears to Barry and tells him he knows he won't know who he is, and he won't remember him. He warns Barry about the world that was changed, and he thanks him for everything he has ever done. Wally tearfully bids Barry farewell as he is being consumed by the Speed Force. Before he's gone forever though, Barry manages to remember him, and he pulls him back into reality. Wally is surprised that Barry remembered him, and Barry says he remembers everything he forgot about him. Wally goes on to tell Barry that it wasn't his fault. Someone changed the world, not the Flashpoint, but the person that stole 10 years from them. They're the ones responsible. He goes on to say that they're still out there, and they're going to strike again. Chapter 4 ends with Batman finding the comedian's pin, while Wally says they are being watched. Afterwards, the comic ends with an epilogue. It shows Wally's watch from the beginning of the comic being fixed. The clock is ticking across the DC universe. This comic does so much, and it does everything so well, and it's so amazing. This feels a lot more like something that would have come out from the pre-52 universe rather than the new 52 universe, just because of how it manages to be so emotional and so touching, but at the same time it's very lighthearted, and it's much more lighthearted than anything we've seen in so long. It's a great start for the tone that we should expect from here on out. Splitting the issue up into the 4 chapters that it was split into really helped to make sure each part had a specific focus, and showed the direction the issue was going through the entire time. Each part focuses on a specific aspect of the characters, the universe, and it spends just enough time that we get the full effect that it delivers, but not enough time that anything else is overshadowed. The whole point of Rebirth was to bring back what made the classic characters so memorable, and that is definitely showed here the entire time. Wally West from before Flashpoint being the narrator of this, and explaining why there was a different Wally West in the New 52 was a very amazing touch. Wally represents so much of what was lost, and so much of what was missing in the New 52 universe, so him coming back is very symbolic of what else is to return and change after Rebirth. The scene at the beginning when he was reaching out to Bruce to remember the letter he got from his father before he was absorbed back into the Speed Force, that reminded me so much of the scene from Dawn of Justice, where Flash appears to Batman after he has the nightmare of Superman in the destroyed future. I'm not sure if they did that on purpose, but it's a nice touch either way, and it looks very nice. The Justice Society was notably missing from the New 52, with superheroes and supervillains having been a recent thing that barely started occurring. They didn't have a golden or silver age of heroes and villains. Showing that the Justice Society are still out there and they're going to come back is great for fans of them. We also got new informations and new reveals such as Ray Palmer, the Microverse, and the fact that Dr. Fate reveals to Ted Kord the Blue Beetle Scarab is actually magic, and not science like it was always believed. This retcon might bother some fans of the Blue Beetle, but I'm really looking forward to it because it's an interesting new direction for the character, and I'm curious to see what they do with it. Having Ted Kord and Jaime Reyes work together also looks like it's going to be so much fun. Having Green Arrow and Black Canary finally meet was definitely overdue, and I can't wait to see where things go from there. The two of them are one of the greatest and most iconic couples in all of comics, so the fact that they're finally getting back together is so great. Similarly, it's a very nice touch that Aquaman and Mera are getting married again. Throughout the issue, we also get to see some of what the characters are going through, and it totally sets up a lot of the stories that are coming after Rebirth. Just to name a few, we get to see Damian Wayne having his 13th birthday, we get to see 2 mysterious figures in Gotham looking at the bat signal and waiting for their moment to appear. Constantine is shown together with Swamp Thing, Dick Grayson is seen holding the blue Nightwing suit, and Batman is investigating the Joker and trying to figure out what it means for 3 Jokers. Something else this comic managed to do so well is fit in with the events following the Darkseid War and the death of New 52 Superman. We see the public is still affected by the death of New 52 Superman, with several heroes coming to the scene to grieve for him, and it being all over the news, and people wanting to see it. As for the Darkseid War, we see Batman is still trying to figure out what the chair meant when it told him there were 3 Jokers, when he asked for the identity of the Joker. Baby Darkseid is shown, and information is given about Wonder Woman's brother. The story fits in so nicely at the point that DC is currently in, and it works to create a smooth transition from pre-Rebirth to post-Rebirth New 52. The scene at the end when Wally accepts he's going to be consumed by the Speed Force, and he tearfully tells Wally goodbye, is such an emotionally touching scene. It's filled with so many different emotions, and you get to feel everything going on between both of the characters in that scene. It's so nice and touching, especially for fans of The Flash, and especially fans of Wally West. A lot of characters are going to be getting new designs following Rebirth, and for the most part they all look really good. There are a lot of changes coming from Rebirth in the way the characters are going to have their stories told. There's a lot of great stories coming, and I can't name all of them, but here are just a few that I'm really excited and looking forward to. First of all, I'm really looking forward to the new Teen Titans story, since as much as I don't like him, I'm interested in seeing how Damian Wayne is going to fit in there, and I really like the new designs of all of the Titans. Ted Kord and Jaime Reyes working together seems as though it's going to be a great story, and I'm sure there's a good reason for why the Blue Beetle Scarab is now magic, and I'm sure the story will explore it in a good way. A lot of classic characters were brought back, such as Wally West, the Justice Society, Superwoman, and Pre-52 Superman, so I'm very looking forward to see what they're doing with these old characters, and how they're going to fit into the New 52 universe. I'm curious as to who the 2 people that were shown in Gotham are, and what role they're going to play in, as well as how the 3 different Jokers plotline will play out. Definitely though, the thing I am most excited for with Rebirth is Dick Grayson going back to being Nightwing, and especially the fact that he's back in his classic blue outfit. Nightwing is one of my favorite comic book characters, and I'm glad he's back because I was not a fan at all of the Grayson storyline from New 52. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about the reveal at the end, where Batman finds the comedian's pin with Wally saying they're being watched, as well as the epilogue that shows the Watchman symbol saying the clock is ticking across the DC universe. Now personally, I'm not a huge fan of the fact that Watchmen is being involved with the DC universe. I mean, Watchmen is a great story, but it was never meant to be more than what it was. Combining the Watchmen with the DC universe could be a good thing, and I'm interested in seeing how things will unfold. but I feel like it's something that just wasn't needed, and using Watchmen was just an excuse to explain why New 52 was so dark. The New 52 was in fact criticized for being too dark, and if the Watchmen were involved with creating it, that makes a lot of sense because of how dark their story and their world is. Wally says that both 10 years and love were stolen from them, so I'm curious as to where these 10 years were stolen, and why things ended up being so much changed. I'm sure if done correctly, the Watchmen will be integrated nicely with the DC Universe. It's just a matter of waiting to see how things turn out, but for now, I'm eagerly optimistic. Overall, DC Comics Rebirth #1 is 10 out of 10. New 52 had a lot of problems, and had a lot of criticism from fans for a long time now. Rebirth actively acknowledges the problems that fans had with it, saying things such as something is missing, love was stolen from us, and we were infected by darkness. It manages to not only explain the changes to the universe that resulted in creating the New 52, but it sets up the groundwork for fixing them and making DC Comics what made them great in the first place. Rebirth is not about rebooting the universe, but bringing back its original greatness. It creates a great transition and uses the events that are currently happening throughout the DC Universe to create this change. This issue manages to not only set up the beginning of Rebirth, but to tease what's to come next for these characters, and so much more. It has an amazing twist that will change the dynamics of the DC Universe, and it's so emotional throughout the entire run. It's wonderfully structured with each chapter leading to the next, and enough time being spent on each moment to have the full impact it needs. It definitely is the groundwork for making DC Comics great again. If you read DC Comics Rebirth #1, let me know what you thought of it. What are you most excited for with this change in the DC Universe? Also, if there is anything about Rebirth, whether it be in this issue or just Rebirth in general and upcoming stories, that you would like to know my opinion about, let me know. There's so much to cover, not just with this review, but with all of Rebirth, and I wasn't able to talk about everything, so let me know what you're interested in. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time!